You've introduced me as an ultra runner here, and I would. It's going to sound daft, but I wouldn't even necessarily identify as a runner. The fact that you're seeing bits of Jersey that you don't often see. I was saying when we were knocking about the parishes with a few of my mates on the 12 parish challenge, like how lucky we are to be here. Well, what I like about the ultras is it takes ego out of the equation. For me personally, there's no sort of right, I need to get this done in this time. It's all been good thinking, right, I've got St Catherine's, how am I going to feel at St Wands? But who knows? So I'd turn a corner and I'd see someone running the other way because they were following my link, and they're like, right, I'm with you for X amount of distance. And it was just a lift every time someone arrived. It's like, yes, come on. And then the togetherness was unbelievable.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Sportscast Jersey. Today we are joined by ultra runner Joe Parkinson. How are you doing, Joe?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Good. I always start with the same question, and that is, have you always been sporty since a young age?
Football was the one. It was sort of big in our household. Me and my brother sort of lived for it, lived and breathed it, if you like. And then, continued that sort of through uni until I started work. But always football until it wasn't, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah. Who'd you support?
United,
Ah,
unfortunately.
good man. Good man. I'm the same. We're going through the same struggles. Yeah, it's a struggle at the moment. Anyway, running wise, obviously you're doing a lot. You're in the media a lot, doing that at the moment on social media. People seeing you're doing big challenges.
hmm
When did you first start running? Not so much ultra running, but just running in general, and kind of when you first went out and purposely went for a jog or a run.
Um, you've introduced me as an ultra runner here, and I would. It's going to sound daft, but I wouldn't even necessarily identify as a runner.
Yeah,
I know that's a weird thing to say, but I just more used it sort of as an escape, if you like, just get out, clear my head. Um, how a lot of people use running, really. And then sort of a client of mine said he wanted to do the Trail Monkey double top. So I thought, oh, that sounds cool. I hope you prep for that and stuff. I jumped in with him for the El Diablo half, and just thought, you know what, there's something in this. So yeah, that's where it started. Really, 12 months ago, I'd say.
yeah,
I really started getting what you'd say into it. Like I've always had the ability to run, I suppose, but never really taken very seriously.
yeah. And that first race, obviously you're doing it with someone else, so that always kind of helps, or training for it with someone else. But how did you feel during and after that first one?
Um, well, I didn't really do anything on the trails. I just sort of rocked up and ran on the trails, I suppose. Obviously, it's a half marathon, so it's a fair distance in itself, but it just felt good to be on a different terrain, I guess, because I was used to probably for about 2 3 months just hitting sort of the roads, pavements, and stuff, and it was just nice to have something else to look at, different terrain. You've got to be careful of where you're planting your foot and your cadence and that sort of stuff. So it was just a different stimulus. I thought, there's something enjoyable here. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah.
did you prefer that straight? Obviously, you said that's more or less the first time you've done the trails, and now you've done a fair bit of both. Do you prefer the trails over the road?
Um, it depends on mood, I suppose. Like I can see the benefit to both. Like with the trails, you got to obviously respect the hills, up and down. Because if you're flying up the hills, you can't control your heart rate. If you're flying down the hills, obviously there might be an accident. So it's not as easy to settle into like a rhythm, if you like. In some ways that's good, in some ways that's bad. Just mood dependent, I suppose.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And you talked about your first race being a trail monkey. We'll come into the different ones, different other races they do afterwards. But how good is it to have Paul and all involved in that company and that group in doing the trail monkey races and given that option for the Islanders?
Yeah, I mean it's what Paul offers with his races. I know he's got the sort of trail series he does with sort of different distances and winter races, and then he's obviously got half marathons, marathons with his round the rock stuff, and then he's got his ultra marathons too. I mean, the diversity in distance is unbelievable. So there's an entry level for everybody. And the fact that you're seeing bits of Jersey that you don't often see. I was saying when we were knocking about the parishes with a few of my mates on the 12 parish challenge, like how lucky we are to be here. It's very easy to say, and I've been guilty of it myself, there's nothing to do. I'm going to go out at the weekend or I'm going to sit in and watch telly or whatever. But we are lucky. We are definitely blessed with where we are. We've got different terrains to run on. We've got a mixture of flat and hills. So just making the most of that. And Paul does a very, very good job of making it accessible to everyone.
Yeah, yeah. What has been your kind of favorite, sorry, trail monkey race that you've took part in, and when you look back now, and what kind of stands out to you?
Um, they're never enjoyable while you're doing it.
Yeah,
I'd say that straight away. There's well, what I like about the ultras is it takes ego out of the equation. For me personally, there's no sort of right, I need to get this done in this time. You have good ideas on splits and stuff going into a race, but it was just very much right, go on feel here, keep my heart rate controlled and move. Um, I liked double top because it taught me a few lessons in pacing. It was my first ultra, so first trail ultra as well. So I was a bit like, oh god, this is shock to the system. The door opened, I suppose, with the El Diablo half because that sort of piqued my interest. I was like, well, let's see what I can do here. But round the rock for me was the one, maybe because I put a bit my own twist on it, but that is a nice one. To say that you've ran around Jersey's quite cool, and the Strava map looks nice. I guess it's a good one for Strava. And then the 100K that's just a different beast. That through the night and in the dark, you can only sort of see as far as your head torch allows you, really, for 85% of it. So it's most enjoyable. I think that was a question. I've rattled on a bit there. Probably Round the Rock.
yeah, yeah. I want to talk about around the rock a bit more, and you said you put your own twist on it. You did powerlifting the same day. Just go into it a bit more, and for those who might not know much about powerlifting and what's involved in what you did, explain that as
Um, okay, so powerlifting is the total amount of weight lifted in three lifts, being the squat, bench press, and deadlift. Um, so my goal for that was to accumulate a 480 kilo total, and then run 48 miles, which was sort of round the rock. Woke up quite early to do that, so I mean that in itself was a bit of a shock. But I don't. That's why earlier I said I don't necessarily identify as a runner. Um, you could call it hybrid, I suppose. You could call it generalist, I guess. But the reason I train is to have like a general physical preparedness, so GPP, which is why this year it wasn't such a shock to the body to start doing all these things. I had like the training behind me, if you like, to sustain a sensible build and load to get to these things. But yeah, 480 kilo powerlifting total, which I thought I was more capable of than what I was on the day. Basically, I had to tweak a few things. You see the highlight reel, but there was a missed 170 kilo squat, which I was very confident I'd hit. Missed it. So hit a 165. Bench press, same again. I thought I'd be good for 125. Turned out it was 120. So a lot rode on that deadlift. So the 195 kilo deadlift was more than what I'd anticipated. Hoped for. Managed to get it done, locked it out, and then yeah, obviously that took a bit of a toll on hammies, glutes, lower back, etc. going into 48-mile run. So I made it hard for myself, but yeah, it's a cool thing to say I've done.
You done, yeah. But on the run after doing that, how were you? Obviously, big physical challenges, but mentally, all of these challenges are tough as well. How do you cope with the mental side of things?
Um, it's just about being in the moment. I know it's very cliche. But it's cliche for a reason. I can only control what I'm doing in the now. So I got to St. Catherine's a little bit slower than what I'd hoped. Now, in hindsight, probably not surprised because of what I did in the morning. But I was thinking, well, them kilometers are gone. I've got no control over that now. That is what it is. Let's attack the North Coast. And the North Coast is, for anyone who's walked it, done parts of it, ran it, it's a beast. So it's just taking it as it comes. The fact it was daylight helped because you could see what was coming and you could sort of tick it off. But it's just important to sort of not look too far ahead. Think about, right, when am I consuming my carbs or my calories? When do I need salt? Listening to your body. It's very much being in the now, but I guess not looking too far ahead.
Yeah,
It's all been good thinking, right, I've got St. Catherine's. How am I going to feel at St. Juan's? But who knows?
yeah,
I'll get there when I get there. I had an idea in mind for pace that went out the window early doors. So it's right, control the controllables basically. So you worry about yourself.
yeah, definitely. And I want to touch on one other race that you mentioned before, the nighttime race.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's so different to any other race that anyone's probably going to do. What were the main differences? Was it the mental side of things, or what were the main challenges?
It was dark. It sounds
Yeah,
dark, but it's you know that you should be asleep and your body's releasing all these chemicals to tell you you should be asleep and you're deliberately going against that um, and running. So it's not necessarily in your control, if that makes sense. It's, well, why am I not feeling good? Why am I running slower? Well, I'm running slower because it's dark. I'm running slower because of these physiological factors that are out of my control. Mentally, all I can do is put one foot in front of the other.
yeah,
Um, because there's nothing going on, there's not a lot to see. You can only see as far as your torch sort of allows. Um, it it's a tough one because it is only you and your feelings. Now it was that for quite a bit of it, but luckily I bumped into somebody, Johnny Amy, might as well name him, who did it with me in the end, basically, and we ran a fair bit of it together. We were similar paces, and then yeah, we sort of helped get each other through. When he was high, I was low. When I was low, he was high. Like going along St. Juan's, for example, just seemed to go on forever and ever on the way there. And I really, really struggled with that. It was just right. I was feeling good. I convinced myself I was feeling good. I had the gel. I was like, right, caffeine's kicking in. I'm fine. And then I wasn't. I hit a wall. Okay, fine. That's going to happen at some stage. Mine's happened now. So he dragged me through. Same happened on the way back. I stopped for a wee. He carried on going because you wouldn't stop after 60k. It's silly if you don't need to. he got a little bit out of sight. I got lost, and then sort of we found each other going round sort of Corbière, if you like. We got onto like at the Pelon, and he was running a couple of 100 meters ahead of me, and he just said, "Why? Why are we running so far away? Well, so close to each other, but so far away. Like I'm not going to accelerate to close the gap. He doesn't want to slow down necessarily. So it's just a right. We found each other again and dragged each other through. Like it's yeah. Again, cliche, but analogy for life. Like there is support there.
Yeah.
I guess.
How, how how good is that in running? I've done it loads. Obviously, done plenty of races and what have you. How good do you think running is and running races, especially in Jersey, where people like this instance here do help you, do support you? How good is that in Jersey?
Yeah, I mean the running communities, from what I've seen, it's been predominantly trail stuff, but the running community is brilliant. I know there's lots of clubs who offer sort of group training sessions, group runs, social events, because it can be lonely. It is a lonely sport, but running with friends, running with groups, finding someone that a similar ability level is, I mean, it gets you going for one. Like it's cold out there today. It's a nice day, but who wants to step out into the cold, wet, windy to go for a run?
Yeah,
You've got someone you're meeting at a certain point at a certain time. It's definitely helpful. Accountability, support. I mean, you become friends at the end of the day.
yeah,
So it's brilliant.
yeah, definitely. And that's something. Obviously, next thing I want to kind of chat about is the big December challenge that you did. Um, Marathon each day, 12 marathons
Yeah.
in each parish. Firstly, before I come on to the support that you received and what have you, where did the idea actually come about? When did that happen?
A couple of years ago,
Yeah,
um, I said to a mate, "Oh, I've had this idea. 12 days of Christmas. There's 12 parishes. How cool would it be to run a marathon in each parish?" And then just sort of thought nothing of it. Didn't say anything to anybody else. Just thought, wow, that'd be cool. And then this year, with all the running I've done, and that aerobic endurance I managed to build, I thought, I mean, it's time. It being 3 weeks after a 100 kilometer trail run probably isn't the best in terms of timing. I did think of delaying it, so starting on sort of Christmas, Boxing Day, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, probably, and doing the 12 days of Christmas that way. But I just didn't want to miss a window for fundraising. Selfishly, it was an idea I had and thought that's cool. Obviously, I knew that it's extreme, I guess. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but will generate enough interest that some positive could come out of it too. So that's why I got sort of Jersey Christmas Appeal involved, mine Jersey involved, especially with everything this year. Finances obviously tighter for everybody. The storm hit and people are sort of out of their homes, if you like. I've had a few clients who have had tough years or tough couple of years, a tough year this year, and I've seen firsthand how they're affected. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm in the best shape I am physically to give this a go. People are in need. Now's the time. So yeah, just bit
yeah,
the bullet, I guess.
yeah, fantastic. It's brilliant that you did it for charities, and it definitely raised awareness of all of those charities. Obviously, raised good funds as well. But the challenge itself, was it as tough as you thought? How was it? Now you look back a few weeks on, with reflection.
Um, Without sounding or wanting to sound arrogant, I always thought I would be capable of it physically. Otherwise, I wouldn't have set the challenge.
Yeah,
Um, Mentally, it is very different to the 100K. Um, Running a marathon is tough. The way I treated it was more like ultra marathons. So calling on that experience of right, walk when I need to walk, listen to my body, fuel properly. Where's my heart rate? Do I need to respect this gradient more so than what I would want to? I'm not going to run up it because it will spike my heart rate, for example. So treating it like that means that there would be longevity in the challenge, I guess. Like, it means I could go the next day. I hadn't sort of put it all out there the day before. But after a few days, especially when my knee blew up on me sort of in Grooville, I was a bit like, I know I'm gonna have to wake up tomorrow and run into pain. And psychologically, that one was tough. Luckily, I had a good support network around me with Chloe Montgomery and Johnny Pickoff at Strive. Kit, to be fair, I need to mention Dave Howell as well, their sports doctor who looked after me, part of Jersey Sport Medicine. And then Kit with the fueling, it's right. How can we be sensible with this? When are you feeling your lows? When can we put the caffeine in? When can we put the carb in to make so I'm not up and down? It's more like a
steady.
Like a controlled descent, I guess.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But yeah, it was tough. It was tough doing it. There was times where I was in tears because the pain was so much, or I thought like I was gonna maybe fail. But it's when that doubt creeps in, knowing that you can call upon experience. Like I've done this before. I can get through it. Like I was devastated with day 10 because it was over 5 hours. In hindsight, that's an absolutely ridiculous thing to say. But on the day, I was gutted. But I knew my performance would sort of degrade, for want of a better phrase. Like it was always going to suffer. To get through 9 days sub 5 hours was fantastic.
Yeah.
One day 5 hours is still very respectable. The last 2 days, heavily dosed on painkillers and anti-inflammatories. But yeah, you get through it. You find a way. Again, cliche, but an analogy for life. I feel better in my ability to cope with difficult stuff because that life may throw at me because I voluntarily step into difficult things.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm no psychologist at all, and it might be the most ridiculous way of doing things to get myself there, but it's working for me, so I'm going with it.
Yeah, definitely. And what helped, I would guess personally anyway, is the support that you got, not just through the media, but people actually getting their running shoes on and running alongside you at stages. How good was that?
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah, I've personally thanked everyone who's come out with me. Their help was invaluable. So obviously, when I set this challenge, I spoke to sort of everyone who was helping me, Kit and the guys up at Strive, saying, right, when makes sense to do this from a daylight point of view, fueling point of view, recovery point of view, like when is the best time? So starting at 8:30, 9 was the best time. Obviously, that clashes with people's working hours for most of the population. So I fully anticipated I'd be doing this by myself, which would have been had I done that. I don't know where I'd have been. I'd like to think I'd have got through it, but I don't know how I'd have coped. The people running with me, such a lift. So I'd turn a corner and I'd see someone running the other way because they were following my link, and they're like, right, I'm with you for X amount of distance. And it was just a lift every time someone arrived. It's like, yes, come on. And then like the togetherness was unbelievable. Like this was my challenge, but someone ran the equivalent of 8 marathons with me. Like it's unbelievable for him to do that, to give that time and show me that support is phenomenal. Like forever grateful.
Yeah, amazing. It was amazing to follow as well. One thing I want to ask and touch on now before asking you what's coming up for you in the future. Obviously, you're a strength and conditioning coach. That's what you specialize in. How how much do you enjoy that kind of job and role and helping teams, individuals with their fitness journey?
Yeah, like hugely. It's a particularly rewarding job for me when you see people adapt, I guess, and the confidence that comes with it, and like the buzz they get, like someone achieves a new skill, or they've hit a personal best, or they run a marathon and go, do you know what, PB, like that for me is phenomenal. That's what it's about. I like to work with people who have sort of performance-based goals. I feel like my t-shirt says athlete. I don't know if you can see that, but not that I'd class myself as one. But if you train like an athlete, the rest follows. Like the body composition will change. Your head will, well, you'll start to adapt, sort of mentally as well as, well, psychologically as well as physiologically. And I like to see growth. Makes sense. It's that no, you were always capable of this. I've helped you with the tools, but at the end of the day, you've turned up, you've put the hard work in, you've done this. Um, is a buzz every time. It is a buzz. So yeah, I mean, love it,
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, amazing. And did that kind of background of you being in that industry or that job help you with all of these challenges that you do and all that you do personally as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like my, again, without trying to sound too arrogant, my understanding of how the body works and how it's going to adapt to certain stimuluses helps me plan my training. So I knew that my end goal for the year was 12 marathons in 12 days. I didn't know if I'd be able to get there. I didn't know how I'd feel after 100K. So I didn't announce it or anything. I spoke to the charities and said, right, here's something I want to do. It's depending on how I feel. I might have rolled an ankle, got injured on the 100K. So, yeah, I knew that was the end goal. So, for example, I was going out and training 3 days on the bounce, but predominantly on roads when I was trying to train for trails. Does that make so? It's sort of counterintuitive, but I know that that's good work. It's not completely specialized, but it's good, honest work because here's my goal. So having that understanding of recovery, adaptation, stimulus required, like minimal effective dose, what is the very least I can get away with here to maintain or increase strength, aerobic capacity. And that way I can marry the two up.
Yeah,
That's how the 480 kilo total and the 48-mile run was doable. Like, do I wish it was 550 miles? Yeah, of course I do, but that's why I'm training, right? I'm trying to get to that.
yeah,
So yeah, the knowledge I have, the experience I have of seeing people adapt, I guess, all just feeds in. You don't really know where you grab it from, but it just sort of
yeah,
goes in there, and then, well, here's my output. And it's more achievable than people think.
yeah,
Um, that's one thing I would say. I mean, I wouldn't look at what I've done this year. I've reflected and I can appreciate I've done a lot of good things, but all were achievable with the right plan.
yeah,
Like this time last year, if you said to me you're going to run 12 hours in 12 days, and yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not in the state to do so. But I knew how to get there.
yeah,
Like for example, when you look at my challenges, it was half marathon, which someone told me you can't include. So I haven't really included it, but that's where it started. And then it went to ultra marathon, but obviously I did a marathon then in training to get there. Time on feet went from sort of 7 hours, 8.5 hours Ironman, which was 12 hours, 100K, which was 13 hours. All of these things prep me for the 12 days. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah. It builds up
Yeah.
to that. Yeah. And I want to kind of ask for you personally, what's next? What does 2024 hold for you? Is it at the moment? Is it time? Is it time to rest and let the body recover and then go again?
Yeah, very much. It's a time to recover, I guess, rest and recover. I need to respect the recovery process. I'm itching to do more currently, but like today it's sunny outside. I'd love to run along the front, but that's not something I'm going to do because it doesn't make any sense to do so. So it's a rest, recover. I am looking at things currently. I want to do a little bit more in terms of strength. I guess I feel like there's gains to be made there. So I'm gonna hopefully, while I need let my body recover from the running, can dial up my strength a little bit. So essentially, it's like it's dialing one down. The endurance I'm going to dial down to maintenance. I'm doing a bit more swimming, which I detest, but needs must. A bit more on the bike just to maintain that. Dial up the strength work. When I'm happy there, dial that down. Dial up the endurance. So yeah, the year at the moment, nothing's set in stone. I've got a few nice ideas which would be good. They scare me a little bit, but I've proven to myself that this year I am possible. Well, it was possible. I am capable. If I fail, nobody actually cares. The
Yeah,
only person who cares is myself. So it's trying to sort of relinquish those unrelenting standards, I guess. I'm
yeah,
very good at saying I'm I did the ultra running because it takes ego out of it, but there's a degree of it there, and it's just days where it will really affect me mentally, days where it doesn't affect me mentally. It's just tuning into that, I guess, and allowing this recovery process. That's the hardest thing because
yeah,
I want to go again because you believe you're immortal, don't you? You think I'm capable of this, I can do this, but really the body's smart. You
yeah.
need to listen to it.
I think rest is the hardest thing for any athlete and any runner especially.
Yeah, I mean, like
Personally,
taper weeks, for example, like you just feel like you want to do
yeah,
more and silly to do so. You know that, but it's hard to convince yourself.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Final kind of question. It's kind of going to be two in one, but firstly, what tips would you give to others and who might want to take on these challenges? And maybe going in within that answer, what have you learned about yourself from doing the challenges itself as well?
Um, do it, do it, and start small. I mean, if it scares you, it's probably a good thing. Again, I'm coming out of all these cliches, but I didn't start running ultra marathons by running ultra marathons. I didn't start deadlifting, well, on that day, nearly 200 kilos by deadlifting nearly 200 kilos. Like we all have a start point. Ground zero might look different for everybody, but give it a go. Like if someone says to me, I can never run a marathon, don't run one then. Like run half. Sign up for a marathon. Force yourself to do so. And if you walk some, fine. And seek help. There's plenty of fantastic coaches out here in Jersey, in the running world, in the sort of strength world, I guess, who would be willing to help you on the way. So get in contact. If you don't know, ask. And what I've learned about myself, I'm probably a little bit more resilient than I thought. A quote that's been doing the rounds in my head for a good few months is resilience is earned. So I'm trying to earn it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
endurance is, I'm going to say fun, but it's a world in which you will learn a lot about yourself mentally, physically. Well, I'm capable of running 100 kilometers. That's cool, but mentally, when the going got tough, can I keep going? And I think it's just that stepping into difficult things voluntarily. So the difficult things that throw themselves at you during life, which happens to everybody, you are more capable of dealing with it. That's it, I suppose, in a nutshell.
yeah. Amazing, Joe. This has been brilliant. It's been great to have you on and to discuss everything you've done. So thank you for your time.
Cheers, bud. Thank you.
Cheers. And thank you to everyone that's watched or listened to this podcast. Another episode is coming soon.